Hi, this is Jerry Cifarelli, President and CEO of ANC, and this is the Sports Business Conversations podcast with ADC Partners.
Hey, this is Dave Elmy of ADC Partners, and welcome to this episode of the Sports Business Conversations podcast. Appreciate you stopping by to have a listen. Now, a quick favor, if you will. Consider, for a moment, the humble stadium sign. Yes, those ubiquitous displays that vie for your attention at every stadium and arena you've ever been to. I think most people in sports business have been guilty at one time or another of looking at those signs a little derisively. You know, spots and dots, as the saying goes. The things you add toward the end of a sponsorship proposal. Well, disregard the no longer humble stadium sign at your peril. Digital displays and mammoth scoreboards are now an essential part of the live sports experience. Designers are anxiously one-upping each other to produce the largest, clearest, and most advanced displays for their stadiums. All of which brings a smile to the face of Jerry Cifarelli. Because for the president and CEO of ANC, that means business is good. In our conversation, Jerry reflects on his journey in sports business, starting with early exposure to the industry through his father, who founded ANC in 1997. After gaining experience at Fenway Sports Group, he returned to ANC in 2012 to build its collegiate business, which quickly became a key revenue driver for the company. We discuss ANC's acquisition by Learfield, pursuing his own entrepreneurial vision, and then the eventual reacquisition of ANC in 2023. It's a fun, wide-ranging discussion that I know you'll appreciate. So thanks for listening in on my conversation with Jerry Cifarelli, President and CEO of ANC. Jerry, your father founded ANC with Alan Cohen back in 1997. And I'm wondering, to get started, if you can speak to what it was like growing up around sports business startup. Did you get a sense of it? Were you close to it? Did your father keep you around it and learn about how everything was coming together? And did it spark your interest then?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely got a sense of it. It's probably the best MBA in the world to sit around that table.
Cheaper, too.
Yeah, yes, definitely. A little bit, probably too personal, but at the time we were living with my aunt, and the phone would ring twice if it was for his business. So I really got to know it from day one. You know, you got to hear about the cash flows, the power of relationships, your calculated risk, and so forth. So you learned a lot right out of the gates, and that's probably, it could be good and bad for a young kid, but it ended up working out just okay for me.
Yeah, so you were really close to your father, and you were sort of just surrounded by it, and you're sort of picking up on that entrepreneurial streak. I'm wondering if there's specific memories that you have of that period that still inform how you approach business today.
Yeah, many memories. I think the biggest memory, though, it taught me that I'm afraid of heights. I was hanging rotational signage at Yankee Stadium on the 300 level, and that was the last time I started hanging rotational signage on the 300 level.
It's good to learn these things early, though.
Yeah, you learn them early. But no, you really do. It's I think for me, the biggest takeaway was when I was a young kid. You know, you think about kids, they look up to Mark Messier. I mean, yeah, I got Mike Richter here. But I looked up to the owners and the team presidents and people like that because I was just around them as a young kid. So probably hurt my childhood a little bit, not, cheering for players and cheering for executives, which was a little weird.
Let's go front office.
Yeah, it's kind of been instilled in my brain, and I still operate that way as well.
So you began your sports business career, though, not at ANC. You went to Fenway Sports Group, and I'm wondering if that was a conscious decision for you. Did you want to kind of get a perspective outside the business, or was it just simply an opportunity to explore new opportunities?
I think it was definitely a conscious decision. My dad did not want to hire me, probably, but it was.
Yeah, he knew a little too much about you at that time, didn't he?
He's like, this guy skated right through college. He's definitely not good out of the gates. But, I think what I was saying earlier about looking up to the team presidents and so forth and growing up around them, I really wanted to go to Fenway Sports Group and work there.
Yeah.
I went to school. I did my undergrad in New England, Vermont, St. Michael's College. Wanted to go to Boston, loved Boston, but most importantly, I loved that team there. And I got to meet Mark Lev, who's the CEO of Boston Common Golf, and Billy Hogan and Sam Kennedy. Mark and Billy actually started at ANC too. So I knew them, they were people that I looked up to. So I wanted to go learn from them, and they put me through their associate program and I made it out.
And you started at the ground level. You were an account executive with Fenway Sports Group. So, it was very much the go out and you are developing new business. Did it surprise you or like open your eyes a bit to new aspects of the business that you hadn't been accustomed to before? Or was it pretty much along the lines?
Yeah, it definitely did. I was actually before I became, an account executive, I was their sales trainee, the first ever. They still run this associate program to this day.
You were the guinea pig.
I was the first one. They were like, let's give this a try with Sif. He probably doesn't know what he's doing. And we don't really know what the program looks like yet. So
right. We can't screw him up that bad. Let's go after him.
He's already tapped. So they put me through it and, really learned everything from prospecting to, what inventory was available, all of the stuff that, you think about today right away. And I got to learn it from the best in the business. So it was incredible.
Yeah, that's a great team, great group of people who are, and certainly still are, on the leading edge of particularly how one ownership group can invest into multiple properties to really broaden the perspective of it.
I think one of my best memories from there too, outside of work, was I was able to eat lunch at Fenway Park, and I got to eat lunch. My dad would come up and visit. They were an ANC client at the time, so he'd come up and visit, and him and I would get a sandwich and sit in an empty Fenway Park. And I've been a Red Sox fan ever since that.
Yeah, it's the funny thing about those kinds of places, and people who work for sports teams sometimes forget, like they're in Fenway Park or they're in their stadium where they're working so much it loses a little bit of the, for lack of a better term, magic associated with it. So whenever we're talking to people, it's sometimes along the lines of, you have to remember that people look at where you work as hollowed ground. It may have rubbed off a little bit on you, but that's the awe that sometimes people have just sitting in that empty stadium. I remember going to the Rose Bowl once and sitting down and like touching the grass. And I don't have any affiliation with UCLA. I'm it's just like it was a business thing. But you get into these places sometimes and you are kind of struck by that awe of the places. And Fenway's one of those places.
Fenway's a cathedral, but anywhere you go, really, an empty ballpark, an empty stadium, an empty arena is just kind of cool.
It's a special
I don't know
place.
what it is for me when they're empty. I know we're in the business of putting, we want fans in the seats, but when they're empty, you really take it in like, wow, this is spectacular.
This is a pretty special
Fenway's
place.
Definitely one of those places.
Now, you ended up circling back to ANC in 2012. You were going to be leading the company's collegiate sales department. Talk a little bit about that homecoming, if you were. What were some of the thoughts and impressions and emotions that were going through you as you started coming back to the family business at that time?
It was probably a similar situation as when I first went to Fenway. ANC didn't have a collegiate division, and they were like, okay, let's give this a shot. Here we go. And I grew up around the business. The model itself the business model has been in my head since I was, maybe 10 and shouldn't be staring at a financial page. But it's, so I knew it, I understood it. And, it has its pros and cons, but I do have the same name as my father. So getting into, some of these universities and having the last name I have, we were able to make some traction right away. And we felt like there was an opportunity to really grow the collegiate space. And it became one of our largest revenue divisions. Really, after year two of giving it a go, our model really resonated with universities and it worked out. So I guess I was lucky.
Yeah. Now let's talk about the business of ANC for just a second, right? Because it's closely linked with electronic signage. There's a lot of other pieces that go along with it, but the sort of the core product has always been electronic signage. And I think for a lot of people, for better or for worse, a lot of people in sports business, sponsorship, fan experience, and things like that, arena and stadium signage kind of used to be an afterthought, right? It was static. It was there. It was a revenue generator. Was kind of it. But technology has really changed that concept of what it means to have displays inside of arena. So it's really become integral. So I'm wondering if you can speak for a moment about ANC and that evolution as a provider to becoming that sort of fundamental way that people engage with and respond to what's happening inside the stadium.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, signage has always been at the forefront of ANC from the beginning. It was founded on the rotational signage days, and it's evolved just like a stadium has evolved. We've evolved as an organization. I mean, we started in 1997, and now we're doing large format video screen installations, the largest 4K video board in the NFL. We're doing the biggest and baddest displays out there. But really, when you think about it now and you look at a new build, it's all technology driven. It's all an immersive experience. It's all digital. It used to be vinyl, and now it's digital. So we've evolved with the experience going to a game, which I think is a testament to the company in itself. But really now it's becoming, we're lucky. We're in a revenue generating space. Teams and venues are constantly looking to generate more revenue, and technology, and you add and you enhance that experience, you can generate more revenue. And that's what we're here to support. When you're in the service business that we are in, we're supporting our teams, and whether that's with technology or revenue generating assets, we are here.
Yeah. You talked about, the biggest 4K boards and things like that. But I'm wondering if there's a point that you've reached where, or starting to look at, where does signage, can it be too much? And the example I always use in this kind of regard is AT&T Stadium, right? You talk to people who go to the Death Star, Cowboy Stadium, AT&T Stadium, and they're in awe of the video board there.
Yeah.
But they also acknowledge that they tend to watch it rather than the game.
Yeah.
So how do you work with clients in this regard to strike that balance between supporting but not intrusive? Is there a line, and what does it look like, and how do you evaluate it?
Yeah. It's a good question, and it's a challenge that everyone faces, right?
Yeah.
We're in sports. It's all about the score at the end of the game, but we're also in the entertainment business too.
Right.
So how do you entertain fans? How do you entertain patrons and get them coming back? So the technology helps that. But in the end of the day, I'm a believer in the quality over quantity. You could have the largest boards, you can have the biggest displays, but it's how those boards work. How do you put on that show? How does that impact the experience for your fan? And that's something that we help guide our partners through. We're in the business of bringing their dreams, how they want to run their show to life. Like, that's what we're doing. We're a partner in that side of things. So yeah, could they be too big sometimes? Totally. But there's operational things that go into that. How does it nest and so forth? How does the show look? If they have a really big video board, maybe they don't have, if it's a center rung, maybe they don't have end zone boards and other places where they can put stats, sponsor content, etc. So there's a lot that goes into it, as much as just the big display. I think what happens is the big gets a lot of the PR, but it's, how do we put on the show? People like stats, people like replay, people like, you need your sponsor content. So where does all that fit? And if you don't have other ways in the venue to make it fit, maybe you need to have the biggest video board out there, right? So you have to just think about that as a full-blown entertainment experience.
It is an interesting point, right, about the PR, right? When a new stadium opens, somebody's spent, $5 billion, I think what it was, SoFi ended up being built for. A huge part of the messaging associated with that is world's biggest board or newest biggest board. So do you have to counsel them? I'm wondering if you ever had a moment where you had to say to somebody, look, that's a great idea and I appreciate it, but this is why it's probably not in your best interest to do what you think you want to do from a video display standpoint.
We haven't run too much into that, thankfully. I guess that's good for business probably too. And it's good to be the cherry on top of a sundae, right? You get a lot of the attention. But, we haven't. But, people think about it. It's done operationally, right? We installed the first ever kinetic video board at Wells Fargo Center. That board doesn't move throughout the game. Yeah, the halos go up and down and the fire comes out and stuff for the pregame and so forth. But during the game, it doesn't move.
Right.
But when they have a show that comes in, it nests together and it's able to go up into the rafter. So you can bring in things for shows. So there's operational ideas that people think about.
Yeah.
Luckily, if I think for us, for Dextronics, the people want big and that's always good. But like I said, I think there's a quality. It's the right resolution for that application, the right product, the right service team behind it. 99.9% of the video boards always look good the day you put them in. It's all about how you treat them throughout the 10 years of the lifespan. And if you can continue to provide that white glove service, which is what we do at ANC, we think that you can get the most out of those displays.
What are some of the ones that you look back on that you've installed, say, over the last 5 years and say, man, that's just an awesome execution? When you think about some of the clients you've worked with, what are some of your favorite examples, favorite case studies that you've used?
I love every single one of our clients.
Equally, I know. They're but great. Some children are a little more handsome than others.
Great case studies. No, I think changing what we did at Wells Fargo Arena with the Comcast folks there was awesome. It's a kinetic center that's what we always say is kind of our flagship. But we do work with all the premier brands out there. I mean, it's hard to there's really not one that stands out. We come into every single partner and we try to deliver their dreams. They put on a show every day. They have fans come in every single day. There's a game, and in many cases tour the facilities. It's up to us to make sure that they don't have to worry about their video boards. I mean, who wants? I mean, look at us. Like, we're talking. Like, do you think people really want to talk about video boards? No, they love the game.
I hope so. I want to listen to this podcast, man.
They love the game. They love the experience. They love the industry. We're lucky to be in an industry that provides that. And we're all about delivering and servicing for our partners, and that is what we're proud of. I think I'm proud that we haven't partners that do business with us don't really leave us. Yeah. And that I think is proud. So when you ask me one, there's not one. What makes me happy is they all stay with us.
Yeah. There's no better indicator of success than repeat business.
Exactly.
From some of your clients.
ANC's probably built its whole entire company on repeat business. So.
Well, you came in, like we talked about, and grew the college division into the chief revenue generator for ANC. So much so that college sports giant Learfield ended up purchasing ANC in 2015. And then I'm sure that was financially rewarding, but I wonder if there was you can provide some perspective on that transaction. Was it kind of like, okay, great, now we can move on to something else? Was it kind of like, wow, it's, hard to see someone else running that business? Can you talk about that acquisition and what that transitional moment was like for you?
Yeah, for me, it was probably harder on my father than it was for me. This was ANC's his baby. I'm lucky to be a steward of it right now. But it was really, I think, selling to Greg Brown and selling to Learfield and what they were doing, it was perfect for us. I mean, it was perfect for the business. Learfield helped advance ANC. They really did take us to the next level, from many different ways, from being, a more professional organization to the systems in place. And we were doing a ton of business with Learfield, right? We're service providers that help you generate revenue. And we're doing that a lot with Learfield. And they're a great organization, a great company that is, the behemoth in collegiate athletics. So they aligned with us at that time, and it was the perfect process. So I think selling to that group was, it could have been, it was great for everyone, great for all the partners, and I think great for Learfield too.
You stuck around ANC for a few years after the purchase, left in 2021 to start C10 Media. Can you talk about that decision to leave and start something new? Was there an entrepreneurial itch you had been needing to scratch for a while? What were some of the motivations?
It's a great question. I think I was looking for a new challenge. Yeah. I think after a while I was, it was time for me to go, and they had other people in charge of the business. So it was time for them to, set the business on the path that they felt it would make it the most successful, and not have me and my view of the business hold them back. So it was just time for a new challenge.
Yeah.
starting the business, I kind of fell into starting C10, right? And maybe I was unemployable, who knows? But at the, I was kind of looking around, trying to figure out what I wanted to do next, and just really fell into this. Clients were calling me and asking for things to do, and I was like, okay, I think I could do that. And off we went. So it was a little bit of timing, I guess, that made me fall into starting C10 and just the market where it was and me not having a job.
Yeah.
So
it's funny how that'll work.
Yeah, I just kind of fell in.
Yeah. And then, so in the ultimate full circle moment, though, C10 ends up buying ANC back from Learfield in 2023.
Yeah.
Can you talk about how that opportunity landed? I mean, Learfield was obviously in a financially precarious position at that particular time. Did they approach you? Did you approach them? How did that whole process come together? And can you talk about the negotiations associated with reacquiring the family business?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to can't talk too much about it, but
you can go in deep. It's fine.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. But I mean, I once listened to a podcast by this guy named Paul Salem. He did a TED Talk actually, and he talked about life and how it was about luck. And I think I just ended up at the time being lucky that they, Learfield and was looking for a new steward of the company, and I was in the right place, the right time, and had the knowledge to drive the business. I mean, they wanted the business to be in good hands.
Yeah.
And we were able to work out a deal in the transaction that put the business in good hands for a long period of time, and forever really, and set the business on a new path. I mean, Learfield has incredible leadership, and one thing that they do is they care.
Yeah.
People really have to say that. I mean, I think you've had Ben on this podcast. I mean, they really do care about their people and about the organization. And ANC was their people. I mean, it was a company underneath them, but it was, the staff was their staff, and they wanted it to be in a place that best fit for that staff. And so we were able to transact and buy the business back. So it was nice. It was great. It worked out for everybody, and I couldn't be more thankful for being lucky and having that timing, and Cole and Ben and the team at Learfield for giving me the opportunity.
Did it surprise you a little bit when the transaction started to become real? Did you think, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening? Or was this, I mean, you talk about luck, and people say what you want about luck, right? It's the harder you prepare, the luckier you get type stuff. But I mean, I'm wondering if it was something that sort of felt like a culmination for you, or it's something like, okay, well, let's do this again.
I would say I don't think I was as surprised as probably a lot of employees that worked here at the time were probably like, oh my gosh, what? I just, like I said, I kind of grew up in the entertainment industry. I grew up in the sports business. I knew a lot of people, and still, and really value a lot of those relationships. So I felt that if, I did right by everybody and did the right thing, good things would happen.
Right.
I feel that I wasn't surprised, but I also wasn't planning on it, right? This wasn't like I was planning on buying ANC. I thought I was going to run my little shop for a little bit.
Yeah.
Who knows? But
when opportunity strikes.
The opportunity strikes, and I was in the right place, right time, and off we went. And we've been running ever since.
No, I don't doubt that. So let's talk about running for a second, because as you look at these next few chapters for ANC, it's back in your hands. You've got, your hands on the throttle. It's a competitive business. What are you most excited about for ANC? And as you look to how sports and entertainment is evolving and what you want ANC's role to be in that evolution, what's got you fired up?
Yeah, I think really what's got me fired up is our models resonating. As I said, ANC has been put, we talked about a bunch of signage installations and so forth, but we're not a manufacturer. We don't build our products, right? So we're not judged on the product out the door. We compete with Daktronics, who's really judged by the product that leaves their factory. We provide a solution for our customers. We work with the best manufacturers to install products for that specific application. We service it with our own people. We have our own software platform, and we have an advertising division that brings revenue back to those teams that we partner with. through media rights deals that we do, through our TV visible signage deals, through our classic corporate sponsorship brand representation business. So I think that's really resonating right now. And we're doing a lot of deals that include all 4 of those verticals in one. So I'm really excited about that. I'm really excited about being the best company that people want to work with and that people want to work for. And I think that we are there. I think we're very close. And I think each one of our divisions is really doing a great job. And so we're kind of owning our lane right now. And, who knows where this is going to take us. But right now, I'm excited about delivering. My focus is delivering for our people and for our partners, for our shareholders, and for, most importantly, for our clients.
I'm with Jerry Cifarelli. He's the president and CEO of ANC. Jerry, I want to thank you for the time today. But before I let you go, I got to throw you into the lightning round. I got a series of questions for you. There's really just no way to prepare for them.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to throw them out there and just give me the first thing that comes to your mind in the lightning round. Are you ready?
Uh-oh. I'm ready.
That was not confidence instilling.
My wife always tells me I got to think before I talk. So
that's not the goal of the lightning round. This is a mouth moves, brain acts in later. Here we go.
Yeah,
First question.
That's not good for me.
All right, here we go. You attended St. Michael's College, and the Purple Knights recently upset St. Anselm's to win the NE10 Ice Hockey Championships, their first since 2009. What would you like to say to the team?
Congrats. Couldn't be more happy. I think it's Winooski, Vermont is finally, delivering a championship, which is great.
You got to love it. Go Purple Knights. As discussed, you began your career at Fenway Sports Group, the ownership group that includes the Boston Red Sox. You're a big Red Sox fan. As a fan who spent a lot of time at the stadium, can you tell me what it smells like inside the Green Monster? Hard to put into words.
Yes, it's a slice of heaven in there, I guess.
I guess depending on your definition
depending on how you look
heaven.
at things. It smells like dirt.
It smells like dirt. Exactly. Good point. How did you celebrate reacquiring ANC from Learfield? What did you have for dinner that night?
I had a very nice bottle of wine. Probably didn't eat much dinner. We enjoyed the whole bottle.
Very point. You had a liquid celebration.
Yes, exactly.
Last and certainly not least, what's your dream video board placement idea? If you could place one of your boards anywhere, where would it be?
In my backyard. It'd be nice to have a big. It'd be nice to watch golf on a Sunday in the summer with a 50-foot video board. I think that'd be pretty cool. I just maybe have to get that done.
Jerry Cifarelli, thanks for the time today. Appreciate it.
David, thank you, man.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the One-on-One Sports Business Conversations podcast. If you enjoyed it, we always appreciate a subscribe, share, comment, or like. And don't forget, you can always find past episodes at abcpartners.com/podcast. This podcast is written, produced, edited, and hosted by Dave Almy. And theme music was composed by Scott Holmes.